Princess Zara pressed her pale blue hand against the crystal window of her tower chamber. Below, thousands of workers moved like tiny insects across the palace grounds. They carried golden decorations, rainbow-colored flowers, and long silk banners. Tomorrow would be her wedding day. Tomorrow her freedom would end. The princess turned away from the window with a heavy heart. Her reflection stared back from the mirror on the far wall. Her silver hair fell in waves to her shoulders. Her violet eyes showed the sadness she tried to hide from everyone else. The wedding dress hung on a golden stand nearby. It was beautiful, covered in tiny gems that sparkled like stars. But to Zara, it looked like a prison. She had spent 3 months planning her escape. Every detail was ready. Tonight, after the moon set, she would use her teleportation powers to disappear forever. The guards could not stop her. No one in the palace knew about her secret training in combat and stealth. She had learned these skills in the deep caves beneath the palace where no one would find her. A soft knock came at her door. "Princess, your father wishes to see you," said the voice of her old servant, Maya. "Tell him I am resting," Zara replied. She did not want to see Emperor Vex right now. He would only speak about duty and the good of their empire. He would remind her that this marriage would prevent a terrible war with the Dominion. Prince Kale of the Dominion was known for his cruelty, but the emperor said sacrifice was necessary for peace. Zara knew better. She had heard whispers from the servants. This marriage was not about peace. It was about power. The two empires wanted to join forces to control smaller worlds. They would rule the galaxy together while others suffered under their control. The princess walked to her desk and opened a secret drawer. Inside lay a small device that could block tracking signals. Tomorrow night, when the celebrations began, she would activate it and vanish. She had chosen a distant planet where neither empire had influence. There she could live freely, away from politics and arranged marriages. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, a small Earth ship approached the Vex homeworld. Inside the ship, diplomat Samchin reviewed his mission files one final time. Earth was still new to galactic politics. Most alien species saw humans as primitive and weak. This meeting was important for establishing trade relationships that could help Earth grow. Sam was 35 years old with brown hair and kind eyes. He had spent years studying alien cultures and languages. His team consisted of 3 other humans, Dr. Lisa Park, a xenobiologist, Commander Tom Wright, a military advisor, and translator Maria Santos. They all knew this mission was dangerous. Many alien species looked down on humans, and some were openly hostile. "Approaching the Vex homeworld," announced Commander Wright from the pilot's seat. Through the front window, they could see a beautiful blue-green planet covered in crystal cities that reflected sunlight like diamonds. "Remember," Sam said to his team, "we are here as guests. We show respect for their customs, even if we do not understand them. Our goal is to prove that humans can be valuable partners in trade and friendship." Dr. Park nodded. The Vex are known for their advanced technology and their rigid social structure. The Emperor has absolute power, and the princess is expected to marry for political reasons. "Sounds familiar from Earth's history," Maria commented. "Arranged marriages for political alliances." Sam frowned. He had read about Princess Zara in the mission files. She was intelligent and skilled but had no choice in her future. It reminded him of stories from old Earth, when women had no power over their own lives. He hoped the galaxy had moved beyond such practices, but apparently some traditions continued. Their ship landed at the main spaceport. Hundreds of alien vessels filled the area. Ships from dozens of different worlds had come for the royal wedding. The humans gathered their diplomatic gifts and prepared to meet their escort. A tall Vex official waited for them outside the ship. His skin had a blue tint, and his silver hair was braided with small crystals. "I am Minister Rax. Emperor Vex has granted you permission to observe the wedding ceremony. You will stay in the guest quarters and attend only the public events. "We are honored by the Emperor's kindness," Sam replied in perfect Vex language. Minister Rax looked surprised. Few humans bothered to learn alien languages properly. As they walked through the crystal streets toward the palace, Sam noticed something troubling. Vex citizens moved quickly and kept their heads down. Guards stood on every corner, watching everyone with suspicious eyes. This did not look like a happy celebration. It looked like a city under military control. At the palace gates, Sam saw several elderly Vex servants carrying heavy decorations. One old woman stumbled under the weight of a large crystal sculpture. When she fell, her load crashed to the ground and shattered into pieces. Immediately, 2 guards rushed toward her with anger in their faces. "Clumsy fool," shouted one guard. "You have destroyed royal property." The old woman looked terrified. "Please, I am sorry. It was an accident. I will work extra hours to pay for it." The guard raised his hand to strike her. Without thinking, Sam stepped forward and caught the guard's wrist. "Wait," Sam said calmly. "Let me help." He knelt beside the old woman and began gathering the crystal pieces. "Are you hurt?" The guard stared at Sam in shock. "Human, this does not concern you. Move away before you get in trouble." Sam continued helping the woman stand. "I see someone who needs assistance. Where I come from, we help people in need." He looked at the guard with steady eyes. Surely the royal wedding is a time for kindness and mercy. Dr. Park, Commander Wright, and Maria quickly joined Sam in cleaning up the broken crystal. The guard looked confused. He had expected the humans to fear him or ignore the situation. Instead, they worked together to help a stranger who meant nothing to them. Minister Rax arrived just as they finished. "What happened here?" The guard explained about the broken sculpture. The human interfered with palace discipline. Minister Rax studied Sam carefully. "Why did you involve yourself in this matter?" "Because it was the right thing to do," Sam answered simply. "This woman made an honest mistake. She deserves compassion, not punishment." "Interesting," Minister Rax said. "Come, we must continue to your quarters." As they walked away, Sam noticed the old woman watching them with tears in her violet eyes. She placed her hand over her heart in what he recognized as a Vex gesture of gratitude. High above in her tower window, Princess Zara had witnessed the entire scene. She could not hear the words, but she saw everything clearly. The human had stepped between the guard and the servant without hesitation. He had helped clean up the broken crystal and made sure the old woman was safe. Then he had simply walked away, asking for nothing in return. Zara felt confused. In her world, every action had a political purpose. People helped others only when it benefited them somehow. Yet this human had risked trouble with the guards to help a complete stranger. What could he possibly gain from such an action? She watched the human delegation enter the palace below. The man who had helped the servant walked with quiet confidence. He did not swagger like the Dominion princes who visited the court. He did not bow and scrape like the minor nobles seeking favor. He simply moved forward with dignity, treating everyone he met with the same respect. That evening, the palace held a great feast for all the wedding guests. Representatives from dozens of worlds filled the massive dining hall. Prince Kale sat at the high table with Emperor Vex, discussing military strategies and trade agreements. Princess Zara was required to attend, dressed in formal robes and jewels that felt like chains around her neck. The human delegation sat at a table near the back of the hall. Zara noticed that other alien diplomats ignored them or spoke to them with obvious condescension. Yet the humans remained polite and friendly to everyone. The one called Sam even engaged in conversation with delegates from smaller, less powerful worlds that the major empires typically overlooked. During the meal, a servant accidentally spilled wine on a Dominion general's uniform. The general jumped up in rage and grabbed the young servant by the throat. "You worthless creature! This uniform cost more than your family earns in a year." Other guests turned away, not wanting to get involved. Even Zara felt helpless to intervene without causing a diplomatic incident. But once again, the human Sam rose from his seat. "General, please allow me to help," Sam said, approaching with a cloth napkin. "I have experience removing stains. Perhaps we can clean this without permanent damage." The general looked at Sam with contempt. "Stay away, human. This is not your concern." "You are right that it is not my concern," Sam admitted. "But I see someone who needs help, and I see someone who made an honest mistake. Sometimes the best solution is to focus on fixing the problem rather than assigning blame." Sam began carefully cleaning the wine stain while speaking to the general about textile preservation techniques he had learned on Earth. His calm, respectful manner gradually cooled the general's anger. The servant escaped without punishment, and the uniform was restored to acceptable condition. Prince Kale had been watching this incident with great interest. He leaned toward Emperor Vex and whispered, "These humans have strange customs. They interfere in matters that do not concern them." "Perhaps," replied the emperor. "But notice how they solve problems without creating larger conflicts. There may be wisdom in their approach." Princess Zara listened to this conversation with growing fascination. She had spent her life surrounded by people who used every situation for personal advantage. Power, wealth, status, these were the only things that mattered in her world. Yet this human seemed motivated by something entirely different. After the feast, Zara returned to her chamber to make final preparations for her escape. Everything was ready. The tracking blocker, supplies for several days of travel, and coordinates for her destination planet. In a few hours, when the palace slept, she would disappear forever. But as she packed her belongings, Zara found herself thinking about the human diplomat. What drove someone to help strangers without seeking reward? What kind of world produced people who chose kindness over self-interest? She had studied many alien cultures, but humans remained a mystery to her. A part of her wanted to know more about these strange beings before she left. But there was no time for such curiosity. Tomorrow would bring her wedding to Prince Kale, a future of political manipulation and eventual war. Tonight was her only chance for freedom. Zara finished packing and settled down to wait for moonset. In a few hours, her old life would end and a new one would begin. She would never see the human again, never learn what made him so different from everyone else she had known. But somehow, the memory of his simple acts of kindness had planted a seed of doubt in her mind. Was running away the only solution? Or was there another path she had not considered? As the moon slowly crossed the sky toward the horizon, Princess Zara sat by her window and wondered if true change was possible, even in a galaxy that seemed ruled by power and fear. Tomorrow would bring answers to questions she had never thought to ask. The moon had finally set behind the crystal spires of the palace. Princess Zara stood silently in her chamber, dressed in dark clothing suitable for traveling. Her escape pack was secured to her back. The tracking blocker device hummed quietly in her pocket. After months of planning, the moment had arrived. She placed her hands on the windowsill and closed her eyes. Teleportation required complete focus and clear visualization of the destination. Zara had practiced this countless times in the hidden caves. She could transport herself anywhere within 1,000 miles instantly. But as she prepared to activate her powers, shouting erupted from the courtyard below. Zara opened her eyes and peered down at the scene. Palace guards were running toward the guest quarters where foreign diplomats stayed. Something had gone wrong. "Emergency assembly," called a guard captain. "All guests must report to the main hall immediately." Zara felt a chill of fear. Had her escape plan been discovered? No, that was impossible. She had told no one about it. This emergency must concern something else entirely. Through her enhanced hearing, she caught fragments of conversation from the guards below. The words made her blood turn cold. Prince Kale's orders. Take them all to the detention levels. Examples must be made. The weak species need to learn their place. Princess Zara realized with growing horror that this was not about her escape. This was something far worse. Prince Kael was making his move earlier than expected. The wedding had been a trap from the beginning. She activated her powers and teleported silently to a balcony overlooking the main hall. Hidden behind stone columns, she watched as confused diplomats from smaller worlds were herded together by armed guards. The representatives from major empires like the Stellar Federation and the Crystal Consortium were notably absent. Only delegates from weaker species had been summoned. Prince Kael stood on the raised platform at the front of the hall. His silver armor gleamed in the torchlight, and his cold blue eyes surveyed the frightened diplomats like a predator studying prey. Beside him stood several Dominion generals and Emperor Vex himself, though Zara's father looked uncomfortable with the situation. Citizens of the lesser worlds, Prince Kael began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. You have come here believing this wedding represents peace and cooperation. You were mistaken. Murmurs of confusion and fear rippled through the crowd. Zara spotted the human delegation near the center of the group. Sam stood protectively near his three companions, his face alert but calm despite the obvious danger. The marriage between Princess Zara and myself will indeed unite the Vex Empire and the Dominion, Prince Kael continued. But not for peace. Together, we will establish order throughout this chaotic galaxy. Your worlds will serve as examples to others who might resist our authority. The prince gestured to his guards. Take them to the detention levels. Tomorrow, after the wedding ceremony, they will be executed as a demonstration of our new power structure. Chaos erupted in the hall. Some diplomats tried to run but found their path blocked by more guards. Others attempted to contact their homeworlds but discovered that all communication had been jammed. The humans stayed together, with Commander Wright positioning himself to shield the others while Sam looked for potential escape routes. Zara watched in shock as her worst fears came true. The wedding was not meant to prevent war, it was designed to start one. A war of conquest that would crush every world too small to defend itself. Her marriage would provide the political justification for genocide on a galactic scale. She had to escape now, before the guards thought to look for her. But as Zara prepared to teleport away, she noticed something that made her hesitate. While other diplomats panicked or pleaded for mercy, the human called Sam was helping others remain calm. He quietly organized the weaker delegates into a protective formation and shared what little water he carried with those who seemed faint from fear. Even facing certain death, the human's first instinct was to help others. Guards began marching the prisoners out of the hall toward the detention levels deep beneath the palace. Zara followed silently, teleporting from shadow to shadow. She told herself she was only observing, gathering information that might be useful later. But truthfully, she could not take her eyes off the human delegation. The detention levels were carved from solid rock far below the palace foundations. They consisted of dozens of cells designed to hold political prisoners and enemies of the state. Most had been empty for years, but tonight they filled quickly with diplomats from across the galaxy. Zara found a hidden alcove where she could watch without being seen. The guards separated the prisoners into different cells based on their species. The 4 humans were placed together in a cell near the center of the detention area. Through the crystal viewing panel, Zara could see Sam immediately checking his companions for injuries while Dr. Park examined other prisoners who had been hurt during the capture. Is everyone all right? Sam asked his team in a quiet voice. Physically, yes, replied Commander Wright. But our communication equipment was confiscated. Earth Command has no idea what happened to us. Maria Santos looked around their cell with professional assessment. These walls are too thick to break through, and the lock is controlled electronically from outside. We are truly trapped. Dr. Park finished treating a cut on the forehead of an elderly diplomat from the Tau system who occupied the neighboring cell. Sam, they plan to execute us tomorrow. We need to focus on escape rather than first aid. No, Sam said firmly. We help who we can while we can. That elderly gentleman has a concussion. The ambassador from Kepler 4 is having trouble breathing. These people need medical attention more than they need to hear escape plans that might not work. Zara listened to this conversation with growing amazement. Even facing execution, the human's priority was caring for strangers. She had never encountered such behavior in her entire life. Over the next several hours, Zara watched Sam move systematically through their section of the detention area. He shared food and water with anyone who needed it. He helped Dr. Park treat injuries and illness among the prisoners. He organized the cell occupants to share body heat since the detention levels were kept deliberately cold. Most remarkably, he spent time talking to each person, learning their names and telling them about his own life on Earth. "My daughter just started university," Sam told a frightened young diplomat from Vega Prime. "She wants to study xenobiology, like Dr. Park. She believes understanding different species is the key to peace in the galaxy." "You have a child?" asked the young alien. "She must be very worried about you." Sam smiled sadly. "She does not know about this mission. It was classified. If something happens to us here, she will simply think we disappeared while exploring space." He paused. "But I hope she will continue her studies. The galaxy needs people who choose understanding over fear." Zara felt something strange happening inside her chest. The human spoke about his daughter with such love and pride, yet he showed no bitterness about potentially never seeing her again. Instead, he focused on encouraging others and maintaining hope for the future. Hours passed. Zara knew she should escape while she still had the chance, but she found herself unable to leave. Something about the humans held her attention like gravity holding a planet in orbit. Near dawn, Prince Kale himself came to visit the detention levels. He walked slowly past each cell, studying the prisoners like specimens in a laboratory. When he reached the human cell, he stopped and smiled coldly. "The famous humans," he said mockingly. "I have read reports about your species. You are supposed to be surprisingly resourceful for such a primitive people." Sam stood and faced the prince with dignity. "We are here as guests for your wedding, Prince Kale. Attacking diplomatic missions violates galactic law." Prince Kale laughed. "Galactic law exists only when someone has the power to enforce it. After today, the Vex Empire and the Dominion will be that power." He leaned closer to the cell bars. "Your execution will send a clear message to Earth and other minor worlds. Submit to our authority or face the same fate." "And what message do you think you are really sending?" Sam asked quietly. "That you fear people who choose cooperation over conquest. That you can only rule through terror because you cannot inspire genuine loyalty." The prince's expression hardened. "I could have you tortured for such insolence." "You could," Sam agreed. "But it would not change the truth of what I said." Prince Kale studied the human with cold interest. "We shall see how brave you are when your friends begin dying one by one." He gestured to his guards. "Separate them. I want the human to watch his companions suffer before his own execution." "No." Sam's voice carried quiet authority that made even the guards pause. "If you want to make examples of us, then execute me first. Let the others go." "Sam, no." Dr. Park protested. "We stay together." "Listen to your friend," Prince Kale said with amusement. "She understands the reality of your situation." Sam looked directly at the prince. "You want to demonstrate your power over humans. Very well. I volunteer to represent my species. My death will serve your purpose better than executing all of us." Zara felt her breath catch in her throat. The human was offering his life to save his companions. Not in the heat of battle or sudden crisis, but as a calculated choice made with full understanding of the consequences. Prince Kale seemed surprised by this response. "You would die for them?" "Of course," Sam replied as if the question itself was strange. "They are my friends and colleagues. They have families waiting for them on Earth. I would gladly give my life if it means they can go home safely." "Fascinating," Prince Kale murmured. Your species truly is as irrational as the report suggested. He turned to leave. Guards. Prepare for the public execution after the wedding ceremony. Begin with the human who wishes to be a martyr. As the prince walked away, Zara found herself completely frozen. She had witnessed countless acts of political sacrifice in her life, people who died for causes, for power, for revenge, for glory. But this was different. Sam had offered his life with no expectation of reward, recognition, or even survival of his ideals. He simply chose death because he believed his friends' lives were more valuable than his own. In Princess Zara's world, such a choice made no logical sense. Every decision was supposed to benefit the person making it somehow. Self-preservation was the first law of politics and survival. Yet here stood a being who violated that fundamental rule with such casual certainty that he seemed confused by the prince's surprise. Zara pressed her back against the stone wall of her hiding place. Her teleportation powers felt frozen within her, as if Sam's incomprehensible sacrifice had short-circuited her ability to think clearly. How could someone choose certain death for others without hesitation? What kind of mind worked in such a completely alien way? The wedding ceremony would begin in only a few hours. After that came the executions. Zara had the power to escape this nightmare and live freely somewhere far away. She could teleport to safety right now and leave these problems behind. But as dawn light began filtering into the detention levels, Princess Zara realized she faced a choice she had never expected to make. The human sacrifice had shown her something that challenged everything she thought she knew about intelligent life. For the first time in her existence, she understood there might be something more important than her own survival. Princess Zara remained hidden in the stone alcove for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Her mind raced with thoughts that seemed to fight against everything she had learned about life and survival. The human's willing sacrifice had broken something inside her understanding of how intelligent beings should behave. In her world, people made calculated risks. They weighed benefits against costs. They chose actions that served their own interests, even when they pretended to help others. But Sam had offered his life for his friends without any calculation at all. He seemed genuinely confused that anyone would find this choice remarkable. Zara closed her eyes and tried to activate her teleportation powers. She could picture her destination clearly, a small agricultural world 3 systems away where neither empire had any influence. She could be there in seconds, free to start a new life far from politics and arranged marriages and galactic conquest. But her powers would not respond. Every time she tried to focus on escape, the image of Sam standing calmly before Prince Kale filled her mind instead. The human had looked at certain death with the same quiet dignity he had shown when helping the old servant woman. As if protecting others was simply what people did, regardless of the personal cost. The sound of marching feet echoed through the detention levels. More guards were arriving to prepare for the executions. Through the stone walls, Zara could hear the distant sounds of wedding preparations continuing above. In a few hours, she would be expected to stand beside Prince Kale and pledge her life to him. The ceremony would mark the beginning of a new age of conquest and terror. Unless she chose to do something about it. The thought struck Zara like lightning. She had spent months planning her own escape, but she had never considered using her abilities to help others escape instead. Her teleportation powers could transport multiple people at once if she was willing to accept the energy cost and physical exhaustion. She could free the prisoners and expose Prince Kale's true plans before the wedding ceremony. But such an action would mean giving up her own chance at freedom. Once she revealed her involvement, both empires would hunt her forever. She would become a fugitive with a price on her head, never able to rest or trust anyone again. Zara thought about Sam's words to Prince Kale. Your execution will send a clear message to Earth and other minor worlds. Submit to our authority or face the same fate. The human was right. These executions were designed to terrorize smaller species into submission. If Prince Kale succeeded today, millions of innocent beings would suffer and die under the new empire. She could save herself, or she could try to save others. For the first time in her life, Princess Zara understood why someone might choose the second option. Zara activated her powers and teleported directly into the human cell. Sam and his companions jumped in surprise at her sudden appearance, but he quickly gestured for them to remain quiet. "Princess Zara?" Sam whispered. "What are you doing here?" "I am here to help you escape," she replied, though the words felt strange in her mouth. "Prince Kale plans to execute all of you after our wedding ceremony." This was a trap from the beginning. Dr. Park looked at her suspiciously. "Why would you help us? What do you gain from this?" The question made Zara pause. In her old way of thinking, there should be an answer. Political advantage, personal revenge against Prince Kale, some hidden agenda that served her own interests. But standing in the cell beside Sam, she realized there was no logical reason for her actions. "I gain nothing," she admitted. "But I have learned something about the value of choosing others over yourself. A human taught me that lesson." Sam studied her face carefully. "You can teleport us out of here?" "Yes, but not just your team. I want to free all the prisoners. They do not deserve to die for Prince Kale's ambition." Zara felt strength growing in her voice as she spoke. "Will you help me coordinate the escape?" "Of course," Sam replied without hesitation. "But what about you? Once the prisoners disappear, both empires will know you were involved." Zara smiled sadly. "Then I will face the same exile that awaited me anyway. At least this way, my freedom will serve a purpose greater than my own comfort." Commander Wright moved to the cell door and began studying the electronic lock. "I might be able to disable the security system from here if you can get me access to the control panel." "I can teleport you there," Zara offered. "But first we need to organize the other prisoners. They must be ready to move quickly when the opportunity comes." Sam nodded and moved to the wall that separated them from the neighboring cell. He began tapping out a message in standard galactic code, explaining the escape plan to the other prisoners. Word spread rapidly through the detention levels as each cell relayed the message to the next. Within minutes, Zara heard responding taps from dozens of cells. The prisoners were ready. Many of them had given up hope of survival, but the possibility of freedom rekindled their courage and determination. Zara teleported Commander Wright to the main control room for the detention levels. The human officer worked with impressive skill and speed, disabling alarms and unlocking cell doors throughout the facility. When he signaled success, Zara began the exhausting process of teleporting groups of prisoners to safety. She transported the first group to the palace gardens, far from the detention levels but still within the palace grounds. Then she returned for the next group, and the next. Each teleportation required enormous energy and left her weaker than before, but she refused to stop until every prisoner was free. Sam remained with her throughout the process, helping to organize groups and ensure that no one was left behind. Even when Zara offered to transport him to safety early, he insisted on staying until the last prisoner was rescued. "We started this together," he told her. "We finish it together." By the time they freed the final group, Princess Zara was exhausted and shaking from energy depletion. She had never used her powers so extensively before. Sam caught her arm to steady her as they emerged into the palace gardens where nearly 200 escaped prisoners waited in nervous groups. "What now?" asked Dr. Park. "The palace is surrounded by guards, and our ships are probably under surveillance." Zara looked at the frightened faces around her. These beings represented dozens of different species from across the galaxy. They had come here hoping for peace and trade relationships. Instead, they had discovered a plot that threatened their entire civilizations. "Now we make sure the galaxy knows the truth," she declared. "The wedding ceremony will be broadcast to millions of worlds. If we can reach the main communication center, we can override the signal and expose Prince Kale's plans." Sam looked concerned. "The communication center will be heavily guarded. This would be extremely dangerous. More dangerous than allowing Prince Kale to start a war of conquest?" Zara asked. If we do nothing, he will attack your worlds one by one until the entire galaxy serves his empire. An elderly diplomat from the Tau system stepped forward. Princess, you have already risked everything to save us. We cannot ask you to do more. You are not asking, Zara replied. I am choosing. Just as the human chose to offer his life for his friends, I choose to risk my life for this cause. She looked around at the assembled prisoners. I spent my whole life planning to escape from responsibility. But escape is not the same as freedom. True freedom comes from choosing to fight for something larger than yourself. Sam placed his hand on her shoulder. Then we fight together. Your people deserve to know what kind of future Prince Kael has planned for them. The group began moving carefully through the palace gardens toward the communication center. Zara used her remaining energy to teleport small groups past guard stations while Sam coordinated the movement of larger numbers through hidden paths he had observed during their diplomatic tour. As they approached the communication center, the sounds of wedding music drifted across the palace grounds. The ceremony had begun. Prince Kael would be expecting Zara to appear at any moment to complete their alliance. The communication center was indeed heavily guarded, but the guards had not expected an attack from within the palace grounds. Most of their attention focused outward, watching for external threats. Sam and Commander Wright led a small team that quietly disabled the perimeter guards while Zara teleported a technical team directly into the control room. Dr. Park and Maria Santos worked together to override the broadcast system. Within minutes, they had control of the signal being transmitted to millions of worlds across the galaxy. In the main palace hall, Prince Kael stood before an audience of nobles and dignitaries, waiting for his bride to arrive. Emperor Vex looked increasingly uncomfortable as the delay stretched longer. Where is Princess Zara? Prince Kael demanded. The ceremony cannot proceed without her. At that moment, every viewing screen in the palace and across the galaxy flickered and changed. Instead of showing the wedding ceremony, they now displayed Princess Zara standing in the communication center, flanked by the freed prisoners. Citizens of the galaxy, Zara began, her voice carrying clearly through the broadcast system. I am Princess Zara of the Vex Empire. I speak to you now to reveal a terrible truth. This wedding is not a celebration of peace. It is the beginning of a war of conquest that will destroy the freedom of every world too small to defend itself. She gestured to the prisoners around her. These beings came here as diplomatic guests. Prince Kael planned to execute them as examples to terrorize other worlds into submission. The alliance between the Vex Empire and the Dominion is not about cooperation. It is about domination. Prince Kael's furious voice could be heard shouting orders to cut the transmission, but his technicians had been locked out of the system. Sam stepped forward to address the galaxy. I am Sam Chen, diplomatic representative of Earth. Princess Zara risked her life to save us and expose this plot. She chose the welfare of strangers over her own safety. This is the kind of courage our galaxy needs if we are to choose cooperation over conquest. Zara continued the broadcast. I call upon all free worlds to reject this empire of fear. Form your own alliances based on mutual respect rather than domination. Show Prince Kael and those like him that the galaxy will not bow to tyranny. The transmission continued for nearly an hour as different prisoners shared their experiences and warned their homeworlds of the threat. By the time palace guards finally broke into the communication center, the message had already reached every corner of the galaxy. Prince Kael himself led the guards, his face twisted with rage. You have doomed yourself, Princess. And your human friends will die slowly for this betrayal. Actually, Sam said calmly, I think you will find the situation has changed. Through the windows of the communication center, they could see ships arriving in the palace sky. Dozens of vessels from different worlds were landing in the palace grounds. The freed prisoners had contacted their governments during the broadcast, and many had sent immediate military support. Moreover, the broadcast had sparked uprisings throughout the Vex Empire itself. Citizens who had suffered under the Emperor's rule saw Princess Zara's courage and decided to demand their own freedom. The crystal cities were filled with protesters calling for an end to imperial tyranny. Prince Kael found himself surrounded by enemies both foreign and domestic. His dream of galactic conquest collapsed in a single day. 6 months later, Princess Zara stood in the same palace hall where her wedding was supposed to take place. But instead of a marriage ceremony, this was the founding assembly of the Free Worlds Coalition. Representatives from hundreds of planets had gathered to sign a new charter based on principles of mutual aid and voluntary cooperation. Sam Chen served as Earth's ambassador to the coalition. His small daughter had indeed continued her xenobiology studies and now worked as Dr. Park's research assistant, studying how different species could live and work together peacefully. "Do you ever regret your choice?" Sam asked Zara during a break between sessions. "You gave up a throne to become a fugitive." Zara looked around the hall filled with beings from across the galaxy, all working together to build a better future. "I gave up a throne," she agreed. "But I gained something more valuable. I learned what it means to be truly free." She smiled at her human friend. "Your species taught us that real power comes not from controlling others, but from choosing to serve something greater than yourself." That lesson changed everything. The Free Worlds Coalition grew stronger every year, offering an alternative to the old empires of fear and conquest. And at its heart was a simple truth that humans had carried to the stars: sometimes the greatest victory comes from putting others before yourself, even when logic says you should run away. The galaxy had learned that lesson from a princess who could not move when she saw a human sacrifice, and decided to make a sacrifice of her own.